Hi guys, welcome to Vesna TV. Today we have another mega video. I'm sharing with you a whole bunch of winter themed DIYs for after Christmas. I am creating several winter themed signs. So the first sign that I'm creating, I'm just using this scrap piece of wood that my husband got from his work. It came in like something was packaged and it had these pieces of wood that they would have thrown out. So I told him anytime there's scrap wood to bring it home because I'll make something beautiful out of it. So I'm just going to be making a nice sign on my fireplace, for my fireplace. And what I'm using is this decorative glaze from Rust-Oleum in the Java. And I will be just staining this piece of wood with this decorative glaze to give it a darker appearance. And the way I apply this is I do a darker coat, like a lighter coat, and then I add another coat to give it a little bit of a darker appearance. You can also let it dry in between if you wanted to, but I found because I did that lighter coat as I went back over it, it was already somewhat dry, and I'm just using a rag for this where I just kind of wipe on, wipe off, and that's it. So once it dries, then I use my Cricut to cut out this Let's Snuggle sign. Now you'll notice that I've kept the words together. So you want to make sure whenever you're doing like stencil signs like this using your vinyl, you want to weld the letters together. Otherwise, Cricut will try to make them all fit on like the smallest amount of space possible. And then you'll have to kind of worry about placing the letters on the same height and everything like that. So although you use a little bit more material, it's better to do it this way, I find. So I'm just going to put it here, Let's Snuggle, and then I'm going to cut out, I'm probably not going to use all those snowflakes, but I'll cut them out and place them wherever I need to. And when I do any kind of vinyl sign things, I use shelf liner or transfer paper. So right now I'm using shelf liner to transfer it, and then I've cut it using, sometimes I do shelf liner. I just couldn't find any that was clear, and I find the other ones aren't elastic enough. They're more, I don't know, I don't like working with the other ones, so I find the clear ones to be the best. So I couldn't find them, so I bought this stuff on Amazon, and it seems to be working really well, and I've had it for a long time, so it's lasting a long time. I think it did wind up being more expensive than the Dollar Tree ones, but it's not a whole lot more expensive just because you get so much more. So I'm gonna put them on the sign. It's using the vinyl to guide me where I'm placing these letters, and I'm trying to make them be kind of the same level, like same height. So I mean, some people are more specific, they measure. I'm just eyeballing this because I wanted it to be, I didn't think it was necessary for it to be measured, but you can, just to see if you know the placement is right. And it's good that you can still remove that vinyl and put it back on. It's not permanent vinyl, so it's not going to rip the stain off. So then I remove my transfer paper so that way I can put these little snowflakes on. And I'm going to dab some Rust-Oleum chocolate and white paint over top of it, and then this sign is done. And I'm just dabbing it on because I found that if I try to paint it on, it sometimes bleeds. So I'm just using this little dabber from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just dabbing the paint on, being careful not to put too much on the dabber. So as you can see, I'm using the lid of the paint can to apply this, so that way I don't, because if you put too much, it'll bleed underneath and then the sign will look messy. And you'll see I fixed the sign up a little bit because even with being careful, it does bleed. And sometimes with the vinyl, if it lifts, when you're putting it on your sign, and I didn't show this step, you want to press really hard. Use an old credit card, or if you have like the Cricut, I forget what it's called, like the little scraper. It's like those Pampered Chef scrapers. Use that to push the vinyl on and get all the bubbles out so it's nice and even. You're much better off to dab on and then let it dry a little bit, and then if you kind of just lift the corner of the stencil up to see if it's the right shade of white that you're looking for, the contrast, then you can leave it at that. But if you feel like you need more, you're better off putting less and then doing several coats than trying to do too much at once, because if you do too much at once, it'll bleed for sure. So I'm just telling you from experience, and try dab on, dab, 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 dab. If you don't have these dabbers from the Dollar Tree makeup, the little makeup sponges work as well. So if you have those on hand, you can use those. And I make this mistake all the time. Try to leave a little bit of vinyl above your writing so you don't have to use anything else for the bleeding, so you don't get paint all over your stuff. But here it is, all finished. I think it's really cute, like a cute little sign it'll go great with my white fireplace once I get that done. That tour will probably be, like, not tour, but just my fireplace mantles will be up on my home channel next week. I wanted to check them out. It'll probably be, I'll have a video of my craft room next week, a video for the fireplaces, and for my tier trays. All will be coming up in like the next 10 days. This is very much a snow themed kind of DIY video. So the next project is just to paint out these snow letters. Again, these are from the Dollar Tree. If you've seen my Valentine's video, I did the same type of thing with love, but these ones are just painted white. I only did one coat. That's all it took. Again, I'm using the Rust-Oleum chalk linen white. This, again, I have two fireplaces, one in the basement, one upstairs. This will go great on my upstairs fireplace because I have a darker mantle, so it'll be a beautiful contrast. I have a darker mantle and white brick, so it'll go really nicely. And really simple, just paint them out. Make sure you paint the top and the bottom. You can paint the back as well. I painted the back as well, just in case I wind up wanting to use this a little bit differently down the road. This way it's all done from both sides, but you don't have to if you, just really depends. And I didn't do the best job of painting the back. I just did kind of a light coat on the back just so it would be there. But like I said, it's not necessary, only if you're going to see it from the back. For my mantle, you won't be able to see it in the back, but I thought just in case I should paint both sides. So once you get it covered, here's what it looks like all finished. Like I said, really, really simple, but I love the way these letters look, and they're just so versatile. You could put them on, glue them on a board. You could do really like anything with these letters and they'll turn out fantastic. So again, really happy with them. And then on to the next project. So the next signs are more for my tiered tray, and they're just mini signs, and they're all kind of the same blue color. So I'm going to have kind of like a bluish, winterish wonderland type of snowy tray theme in one of my trays. So I'm going to be using these little, I made these coasters at Christmas time, but I'm going to use the back of them because I don't need them for the season, but I always like to use everything double-sided, so I'm not bothering on changing the other side. I'm going to keep it as is, and I'm just going to paint out the back. And again, I'm using that Rust-Oleum chalk linen white paint, and I'm doing 2 coats of it, letting it dry in between coats. Then I use my Cricut to apply this burr stencil and a mitten stencil. Unfortunately, I did not record myself applying the paint, but I used this blue paint from the Dollar Tree. I think it's the Pacific Blue. And I dabbed on, again, the paint using this little dabber from the Dollar Tree. And it's just a smaller kind of stenciling. It's just not a dabber, a stenciling brush. And I like this one because it's nice and small, so for those little intricate projects it's really good. So again, I used the little mitten that I created and the burr sign, and then I am just removing the vinyl pieces that I didn't remove, and then seeing if I need to fix anything up anywhere and doing that all together. I've also gone ahead and just dry brushed a little bit of that blue on the edges as well, and that's about it. There's not a whole lot to this one. Again, really simple but very cute. So again, these little coasters are coasters from the Dollar Tree. They're just like little square coasters that I painted over on the other side, and like I said, I'm using this side. And then I'm also mixing a little bit of the Pacific blue and just a darker blue, a navy blue, just to kind of go over top of these again with a little bit more blue, because as I said, I'm doing like a winter themed kind of blue. And then originally I was going to just put a snowflake on the mitten and then paint over it. And then I remembered I had little snowflake stickers, so I went ahead and did that because I didn't like the way this one looked. But even with the sticker, I wasn't 100% happy, so I just went over top of it with just a little bit of that mixture of the blue, just to not have it be completely the color it was. And that's all there is to it. After I dry brushed this picture too with that mixture of the blue, these two are ready to go. Here they are. They'll look so nice in my tray. I'm very excited to show you guys that as well. So I hope you do come back and check it out over on my home channel. Said there was going to be 3 kind of winter bluish wonderland themed colored signs. So this one is just a leftover sign from the Dollar Tree, actually from Easter, and you can pick up these wood signs at the Dollar Tree at any time, whatever sign you want. This was a little piece that was left, so I'm just going to be cutting it to size. I got these little miter shears just recently, and I'm liking them. I'm still getting used to using them, but they were good for this project. So I'm just going to cut it out so that it is exactly the size I want it to be, and obviously more even. And then I'm going to paint it out blue using that Rust-Oleum chocolate and white paint. Now originally I was going to use the back for the sign, but when I was taking a part of the sign off, a bit of the back came off, so it wasn't straight anymore, so I had to sand down the believe because it was glittery. So I sanded it using just whatever sandpaper I had on hand, and I also scraped it a little bit with an X-Acto knife just to get that off. But because it had the believe kind of raised a little bit in there, I had to put several coats of the white on. I think it was about 3 altogether. And then my little sign was ready to be stenciled. Now I'm only showing you me painting it once because you don't need to see several coats on it, but I'm drying it on the same part as I did the other 2 coasters. It's just that I did them all at once, so you kind of see what they looked like before they were stenciled. And then I cut off the stencil again using my Cricut, and I'm using the same blue paint to dab on the sign, and the sign says, wait for it, it's very cheesy, there's no place like home. I thought this was going to be a really adorable addition to my tray. So again, I'm doing the same method as I did on the ones before. I stencil it in with the blue, and then I dry brush it with that blue, darker blue, lighter blue mixture. And the paints are acrylic paints from the Dollar Tree. I think the darker blue is actually a temper paint, and the lighter blue is an acrylic paint, only because that's what I had on hand. And once that dries, again, I dry brush, I correct anything that needed to be corrected, and I dry brush, and that's all there is to this. And I add a little snowflake. And maybe I'm the only one who has these issues, but no matter how careful I am, I almost always have to correct, even if it's just like a little smidget where maybe I haven't let it dry long enough, because if you try to take the vinyl off and it's still wet, you can smear it, or you risk getting some of the paint that's on the vinyl onto your piece. So maybe I'm just impatient, but I always wind up having to fix just a touch, and maybe not a lot, but just a little bit. That's why that dry brushing is good, because if you've made kind of a mistake, but you want to dry brush it with something, it'll cover it up great, and then it'll look like it was meant to be that way. And the sticker that I add is the same snowflake sticker. It's just a pack of snowflake stickers that I got at the Dollar Tree, but you could draw on a snowflake too. I just liked because this one was a little bit raised, so it gave a little bit more depth to the sign. And one snowflake is white and the other one is blue, and I just wind up dry brushing a little bit of the blue over top of the white and a little bit of the white over top of the blue, just to give it a little bit of just a muted color for the blue and a little bit of a livelier color for the white. And there it is, finished. And last but not least is another kind of trash to treasure sign. So this is a leftover piece of plywood that I'm going to be, again, staining using that Rust-Oleum glazed, decorative glaze in Java. And I'm just sanding the plywood lightly, just so some of the pieces kind of stick up. I should have maybe taken my palm sander and sanded it completely, but it wasn't necessarily. I wanted a bit of a rustic look. I just more sanded it so that there was no rough spots so I wouldn't get splinters. But if you wanted a more clear wood, you could sand it down, but this is a very rough piece of plywood, so you won't ever get that really smooth finish. And again, I'm using the same method of applying the glaze. I'm just using a rag and I'm putting on a light coat. I do wind up doing 2 coats and then I wind up fixing it after because I haven't cut it down yet. My husband is the one who's going to cut this just to make it nice and straight. But I wanted to get the stain on and get it going. He didn't have time to cut it, so I wanted it all done, and then he just cut it when he had a minute. As you can see, both sides need to be cut down, and I'm not applying as much stain at the edges because I know I'm going to be fixing it up, so there's no sense in wasting the stain. And again, I use my Cricut, and I just cut out "Let It Snow." Again, welding the letters together and having all of it fit somehow, using the transfer paper and dabbing on the white using the Rust-Oleum linen white. Again, just make sure you don't dab on too much. Less is more. You can always go back and add more so it doesn't bleed. If you do get some paint, use like a baby wipe or something like that to get it off of the stain right away, and it should be okay. If not, you can always go back over a little bit, sand it down, and go over it with the stain. No big deal. It's just paint. Again, it's important for you to wait for it to dry before you remove the vinyl. And here it is all finished. Again, it'll look amazing on my fireplace. I love it. Really cute sign. I might add down the road a little snowflake there, I'm not sure, but here's what they are all finished. Love them all. If you like them, make sure you hit that like button, leave me a comment, tell me which one was your favorite. I'm using one of these little mini crates from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be painting it kind of like a charcoal black. The color that I'm using is actually just a combination of the black acrylic paint with a little bit of the white. If you happen to have the Rust-Oleum chalked charcoal paint on hand, this is the color that I'm basically trying to recreate. It's just a little bit of a muted black color, and I'll show you what that looks like right here. So I'm just going to be painting the whole crate this color, and you don't have to make this exact color. It's up to you. I just wanted the books to kind of look like a matte black color, and you guessed it, I'm making a stack of books. So what we have to do first is just paint this whole box this matte black color. Now I'm painting the sides, the front, the back, and the top of the boxes, like the bottom of the box, because I will be flipping it over. You'll see what I mean in a second. So I'm just going to speed it up a little bit for the sake of time. So once you have that painted and it's nice and dry and you've got the coverage that you want, you're going to go ahead and just make it look like books. So what I'm doing here is I'm using my white liquid chalk marker. What I really like about this is that you can use this for any season that you want. It's a really quick, easy DIY that looks amazing in your tray. And you can have it let it snow, be merry and bright, or joy, merry, whatever, something for Christmas. You could do something for Valentine's Day, which I will do, so I'll show you. You can do Easter, really any season, or you could just have a neutral one. These are some of my favorite kinds of DIYs that have so many different, that you can kind of make a theme out of them. What I mean is you have a stack of books in your tray for every season and they're just different for that season, but you could also make one that you can use all year long. So, I think I've seen like Just Be Happy, for example. That could be something you use all the seasons. You just make it like a decor to match your decor. So if you're a rustic farmhouse, you make it rustic farmhouse. Really easy. So what I'm doing here is to make the books kind of look aged, I'm just going over top of the sides in this antique warm white that I got at the Dollar Tree. If you don't have that color, it's more like a creamy beigey color. It's just beige, but it's called warm or antique white, something like that. Basically, it's beige. And then I'm going to just add a black line to have the illusion of three books stacked one on top of the other. Now you'll see once you see the type of ribbon I chose, but I've left the other side blank in case I wanted to use it for Christmas decor, because the ribbon, it's a winter snowflake ribbon, but it could be used for Christmas as well. I like to have, like I said, a little bit of both. So I could do both sides and have it be double-sided. So in case I do display it in a tray where you can see both sides, this way it'll have like a Christmas and a winter side and it'll blend all of the decor together. So I've left it blank on the other side so I can decide what color I'll use next season for Christmas. So once that's dried off, and I've drawn on my lines, I am going to put the ribbon around. So as you can see, this ribbon is the burlap ribbon with some snowflakes on it. I did get this at the Dollar Tree. And what I've done is I've cut a long enough piece to just overlap slightly. And I'm going to go all the way around and I'm going to make sure that it's nice and tight, as tight as it can be, because you've got that hole at the bottom. So it kind of, you have to kind of pull it a little bit more. And you're going to just, like I said, tightly wrap that around, and then you're going to make your bow at the top by hot gluing it down. Now, the way I've done this is I just take my little pieces of the ribbon and I twirl them around, kind of make like a loop. I take two pieces and I make a loop, and then I glue them down in a bow shape. I make sure that I leave a little bit longer so that there's like a little bit of the hanging part of the ribbon, but that's it, of the bow, I mean. And then you just want to make sure that you hot glue this down well enough so that way it does not come off. And that is it. This is another really, well, this is the one of the first really simple and really nice looking DIYs for the tray. It is all from the Dollar Tree. It's winter themed. It's kind of like a rustic because of the matte color, and that's why I went with that. I wanted more of like a rustic kind of farmhousey winter wonderland type of look. And here's the finished piece from the bottom to the top, and then I'll show you the side as well. I think it looks really, really cute. So I'm very excited about this DIY because I got this little sleigh ornament from the Dollar Tree at 50% off, which is amazing. So I'm in Canada, so that was 63 cents, but it was great and I thought it would make the perfect winter tier tray decor. And all I'm doing is not a whole lot to it. Again, another super easy DIY. I'm just going to be kind of making it look more galvanized. Right now it is that silver galvanized look, but it's very shiny, so I'm just muting it down a little bit. And I'm taking the decorations off of it and then making it more winter themed. I will speed it up for the sake of time. Now the paint that I'm using, some matte black paint that I made myself. So I made it using white acrylic paint and black acrylic paint. Basically, I made kind of like a matte black instead of a true black, just a lighter black because I didn't want it to be so shiny. And I was using that black for those books that you saw me make before. So I'm just dabbing on this black onto the sleigh to, again, give it that more galvanized look rather than a shiny silver look. I've taken the decorations off, but I will be saving them because I always save all of these little things because I can use them as embellishments on other projects. Saves you money. And while that dries, I prepare my white paint. Now the white paint I'm using is actually the Rust-Oleum chalked linen white, and I'm only using this paint because I have a lot of it. I bought a big container of it, and I don't have a lot of white acrylic paint. So to save on going to the store, I'm just going to use my Rust-Oleum chalked linen white. You could use any kind of white paint that you have. You don't have to use the chalked linen white, but like I said, this is what I used because I didn't have a lot of the white acrylic paint, and I just did a Dollar Tree haul. I don't want to go back because I'm going to spend more money than I need to. So again, I'm dabbing the white on, and I'm doing it on the inside as well, just to get a bit of a muted galvanized color. And when you apply your white and your black, you're actually kind of dry brushing it on, so you're not doing a full wet coat. So now that makes it dry really fast. I'm just adding a little bit of the blue acrylic paint that I showed you there, and it's just to give it that kind of illusion of that galvanized look and a more rustic look. And that's all there is to it. This was another quick Dollar Tree DIY, perfect for winter decor, very rustic looking. I've added some cotton balls as snowballs, and it's going to look perfect in that tiered tray. I love this one so much. I hope you like it too. And you can add anything in here. You could even use it for other seasons and not add snowballs, but add something else. But I decided to have a sleigh with snowballs. For this DIY, I will be creating another sled. This time it's a wood look sled, and it's another ornament that I picked up at the Dollar Tree for 63 cents. And although it was Christmas decor, I'm using it as winter decor. And in order to make it work, I'm just taking off all of these Christmas decorations. It's a little bit tricky because they are glued on there really, really well, not with just hot glue, but some sort of extra glue on there that they have. So you have to rip them off. I'm not able to save the burlap, but I am able to save that little decoration, so which is great. I can save bits of the burlap, but it's a little bit rough looking, but I won't throw it out. I might be able to use it next Christmas. So I'm just going to take it off here, and then I have to use an X-Acto knife to take off some of the glue. So I'm going to speed it all up, but I'll show you what I did just so you can see it. So it was quite difficult to get all of the glue off. So what I did was I used the X-Acto knife to get the big pieces off, and then to prevent scratching, because the sled it's like a rubbery plastic kind of material. So I didn't want to damage the sled too much, and as I pressed it, it kind of went down, so it's not the most stable sled. So what I did was after that I just used a little bit of sanding block, and I sanded down some of the glue, and it still left it a little bit rough. But remember, my theme is rustic winter decor, so it's okay if it's rough. If you wanted it really smooth, you might have to maybe soak it in like a glue remover, but that seems like a lot of work for a little decoration, so just make it rustic looking. So I applied lots of paint here to cover everything up. The paint that I'm using is that matte black that I used on my other sleigh and my stack of books. It's just a mixture of black acrylic paint and a little bit of white paint to get a more muted black color. And I'm painting the sleigh all over. I'm not too terribly worried about full 100% coverage because I will be painting it one more time in a white color. I just want the black to be showing underneath so that I can kind of get a rustic feel. So once this dries, I'm going to apply a coat of white, chalked white, linen white from Rust-Oleum. This is my go-to right now because I'm low on acrylic paint. White acrylic paint, I actually didn't even see the pure white at the Dollar Tree this time, but to be honest, I wasn't looking very hard, but it usually catches my eye when they have it because they did not have it pretty much all summer and all fall. They didn't have it. Then they had it once. I should have gotten more than one bottle, but they had it once during Christmas time, and then I haven't seen it since, and I'm running a little bit low, and I have tons of chalked linen white, so I'm going to use that. And I'm just covering the sled. Again, I'm not too concerned about full coverage because I want it to look kind of like dinged up, like an old dinged up white sled. So once you've covered it top to bottom and it's dried, you're going to make it look even more rustic. And you're just going to take either an X-Acto knife or any kind of tool that you have to scrape some of this paint off so that you have that black and brown showing from underneath. And this is totally up to you. You could even sand some of the paint down if you didn't want quite such rough lines. I really wanted the rough lines. I wanted it to look nice and rustic. And so I just used that little tool is actually a paint can opener, so that's what I used. And I'm already reusing some of those florals from I think this one was from the metal sleigh. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the berries off and I'm just keeping the greenery, and I'm going to be hot gluing it to the sleigh. And then on top of that, I have these little mini pine cones that have been flocked, so like frosted, so they look kind of white. And I'm going to be gluing a few of those on. So it'll look really cute and very, very rustic winter, like perfect for the tier tray. And again, these pine cones are also from the Dollar Tree. I also just added a little scrap piece of burlap and kind of made a little X so it looks like it's a bow and the little bow parts are the pine cones. So it really does have that really rustic farmhousey feel. And then I added longer pieces, scrap pieces of burlap to have like a hanging ribbon. And again, that's all there is to this one. Another few more steps than the other ones, but really, really simple and inexpensive to make. Again, all from the Dollar Tree. And here it is finished. Love the way it turned out. Now this little guy that I'm making is kind of like a transition one that you could even use in the spring and even probably in the summer if you change out the burlap, because I find that to me burlap is more winter and Christmas and fall, but not really spring and summer. But what I'm doing is I have these eucalyptus leaves from the Dollar Tree or stems, and I'm just cutting off the leafy parts, and I'm going to be making a mini wreath. Now, making this one and just kind of looking back and reflecting on making this, I next time I will make some sort of form, whether I'll use a lid from a mason jar, just the rim part of it or whatnot, but something where I can kind of glue down these leaves, maybe take them off and just glue them down rather than using the stem part. Even if you use like floral wire and wrapped it around it several times, probably would have been just slightly easier. I just had a little bit of a difficult time making the leaves work and making the shape of it, but it worked out fine. It just took me longer than I think it really needed to for such a small project. But what I did was I took some of the leaves off of this stem and I added it to the next one. First, I tried to move them up. And then I thought, well, I'll just I won't use all three stems. I'll just use two of them and then I'll adjust the leaves accordingly. And that's what I did. And I wrapped them around and then I used just the hot glue for the top part. I did not use the hot glue to actually form the wreath itself. Sometimes I find with certain materials it doesn't stick the best, and this is the kind of material that it wouldn't have just because the stems were so stiff. So once I fluffed it and had it to the shape that I wanted it, I went and cut a little strip of burlap and I hot glued it together. And this is kind of to make the illusion of, okay, this is what you hang the wreath on. And then I snipped it back a little bit to be the right length after I hot glued everything. And that's all there is to this one. I thought about adding some white to make it look like it had snow on it, but then I changed my mind. I wanted a little bit of a pop of green in there. I also then hot glued the tips of the eucalyptus flowers, that like the little tips that it had at the end. I hot glued those to where the burlap was to kind of give a little bit of a bow at the top. And here is the completed piece. Again, I think it turned out really cute. So this next DIY is, so what I'm doing here is I have 3 pieces of wood from my backyard. Now, although I didn't buy this at the Dollar Tree, you can buy pieces of wood at the Dollar Tree. So if you happen to find them, I couldn't find them this time around, but I thought I still wanted to do this and show you guys. And so I just got some from my garden. You can also use the little pieces of birch that they have and just glue them together, you know, 3, 4 of them for each log, and that'll give you the same illusion. But I just use these and I cut the branches down very carefully using my miter saw. This is very, very hard to do, so make sure you're very careful if you do it this way. And once I got the right lengths, then I went ahead and I painted them. So you may have watched a previous video of mine where I paint my logs to look like birch wood. So I'm doing the same thing here. I'm just using like dry brushing on some chalked linen white paint, and I am brushing it kind of with the grain, the way the wood goes. And like I said, I'm not painting it, I'm just kind of swooshing it. I'll link the video to the bigger logs that I did, and I'm trying to get the look of birch wood is what I'm trying to do. So this was a free DIY. So not only is it a rustic winter tier tray DIY, it is kind of Dollar Tree. You could use acrylic paint, and or you could just use the birch logs from the Dollar Tree and just glue them together. But this is even cheaper. So if you have some wood outside that you want to use, you can do this, and you don't even have to have it look like birch wood. You could use like a little stack of wood, whatever you wanted. But I wanted a stack of birch logs, so I'm going to paint them out. Once they're dry, I'm going to put them together and just tie them up so they look like a stack of logs. I'm using the burlap roll from the Dollar Tree, and I'm cutting it in half, and then I'm cutting a long enough piece that will wrap around my birch logs. And as you can see, once they dry, they look exactly like pieces of birch, nice aged pieces of birch. And all I'm doing is I'm tying them together, and I'm just tying a bow kind of like you would, well, I'm not even tying a bow, sorry. I was going to tie them like a shoelace, but then I didn't leave enough of the burlap, so then I'm just tying a knot. And I'm going to cut the burlap down so it just looks like a small little knot, and my little pile of logs is nicely tied up. And again, really rustic, very wintry, and beautiful for the tier tray, and really easy to do. This next decor piece is another really easy DIY to do. Again, I bought this on the clearance section at Dollar Tree for 63 cents. It was a little jar with a snowflake in it, and some faux snow in it. So I thought, well, for 63 cents, I can't go wrong. I do have some jars that I could have used, but I don't have any of that kind of faux snow that was in the bottom of the jar. And I thought, well, if I have to buy that, then I might as well just buy this jar and not use up my other jars. And what I'm doing is applying some Mod Podge to the rim. And I do have the little tiny snowflakes, so no, smaller than these ones that I did buy at the beginning of the season from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to be dipping this rim into those to give the illusion of this being snow covered. I wound up deciding that it wasn't enough to just have the rim, and so I wanted the snow coming down a little bit. And as you can see, I'm not covering it evenly on purpose. I'm having some of it go lower, some of it go higher, so that it looks like the snow was kind of dripping down. And I just cover it this way. Make sure you put something underneath your jar so you can collect those sparkles again and either reuse them or pop them in the jar, whichever, but just don't waste them. There's no point in wasting them. After you dump them over, then you want to go back and see if you missed anything, and if you did, then you go back and pour it over again. And once it dries, if you wanted, you could spray it with a sealer, like a sealing glue. I didn't do that this time because I didn't you will wind up getting it around the jar, and I didn't want to bother with covering it up, so I'm okay with the way it is. I'm not going to be moving it around. It's just going to sit in the tray, and the tray is high enough that the kids won't touch it. And then once that kind of dries off, then you add your glitter back into the jar and you do your decorations at the top. For the decorations at the top, all I'm doing is using a scrap piece of jute rope from the Dollar Tree. Well, the jute rope is from the Dollar Tree, but the scrap piece is from a different project. It would just happen to be long enough to go around the rim. So I'm going to wrap it around, and then I'm going to add some jute rope to hang off of those little pieces there. And then I'll add those little pine cones that I also got at the Dollar Tree that are snow covered, and a little bit of greenery left over from a different project. And I'm going to hot glue all of that to that little spot there, so it looks like, again, like a little bow at the top. And that's all there's to it. You could put a faux candle in there if you wanted to. I'm just using it like this, just as, like I said, as a little decor piece. Again, really simple, really inexpensive, and very winter-like. And you know, adding that jute rope makes it really rustic as well. Same with the frosted pine cones. Then I wound up taking off the greenery that I added, and this is what it looks like. Like I said, really, really rustic and very, to me, it's very winter-like. This next DIY is really easy. I'm using one of these wood snowflakes from the Dollar Tree. I did get this at Christmas time. So if they don't happen to have these because we've passed the time, you could always cut one out using cardboard and paint it. I am choosing to stain it with the Rust-Oleum decorative glaze. I told you guys that I wanted to try this. I've finally run out of my Annie Sloan dark wax, which I love staining with, so I wanted to give this a try, and I did love it as well, which makes it a little bit easier for getting it because we have to go to a different city now with our lockdown. I don't think I'd be able to get the Annie Sloan anyway. So I'm just applying it using a brush, and then I'll be blending it with a rag, and it turned out really, really nicely. You could achieve this color with paint if you used, like with acrylic paint from the Dollar Tree, if you use some of that espresso and mix some black in there, and then kind of lightly brushed it on. Even if you watered it down and then kind of stained the snowflake, you would achieve that look. If you paint, I wouldn't water it down if you're painting cardboard. If you can't find the snowflake, I would just paint it. I wouldn't water it down. Again, really easy, another really easy Dollar Tree DIY. Gives it that rustic winter feel, and perfect for the tray to give a little bit of height to your tray. You'll see in the finished product, it really has a nice, rich brown looking tone. And it like that rustic looking tone. I love it. Can't wait to use it on furniture, to be honest with you. So here it is. So this DIY is a little bit more involved. So what I'm doing is I actually need some scrap white paper and a piece of cardstock and a plastic cup or jar or something or container. So what I'm doing with the scrap piece of paper, I'm just ripping it up into a whole bunch of pieces. You won't need all of these pieces, but I thought I'd rip it up and have extra because you do need to leave them overnight. So what we're doing first, after we've ripped these pieces up, is we're going to go ahead and spray them with water. So you just want to spray it down so that they're nice and wet. And what I'm doing is I'm just making sure that they're not one on top of the other and just really soaking them. And then I'm going to leave them to dry overnight. This seems kind of silly, but you'll see later on what I'm going to do with them. And then for the cardstock, you're just going to need a strip of either a light gray or white cardstock. You don't want to use a different color. Um, those two colors would be best to use. I suppose if you had like a charcoal cardstock, you could use that too, so you can skip the next step. Soaked both sides really well. I just went ahead and well, not both sides, I flipped them. I made sure that they were separated, and I apologize that you can't see better because of the wax paper being so stained. I didn't actually realize it was that bad to see until now. So, but anyway, scrap piece of paper, water down, let to dry overnight. And while that's drying, then you want to get another, this is just cardstock that I cut to the length of my container. And I'm going to be painting it black, but like more of a matte black. So I'm adding a little bit of white into black acrylic paint. And so what I do is I add a little bit and then I mix it, and if I still need it to be lighter, then I add a little bit more. And basically until you get kind of a lighter black, basically, or a really dark gray. If you have like a charcoal black, maybe acrylic paint, or maybe you have Rust-Oleum charcoal black, then you can use that. Or if you have a really dark gray, you could use that as well. But I didn't, so I mixed it up to get that color. And then you're just going to paint your little strip in that color and let it dry off. When you're painting, because I'm making a birch candle holder or birch look candle holder, you want to make sure you're going one direction and kind of the way the wood would go. So you're not going up and down, but you're going side to side. So you're going horizontally, and you're just taking your brush and you're kind of doing light strokes. So that way it looks kind of like wood, if you know what I mean. So after this has dried, you're going to dry brush white on it. But before, don't make the mistake I did. Before you do that, you're going to glue on your pieces of paper that have been drying overnight. And you're going to just use Mod Podge to glue those on. And then you're going to dry brush everything together in a white. It could be an acrylic white paint. I'm using chalk linen white because that's what I have on hand, but you could use any white paint that you have. It doesn't have to be a chalked white or acrylic paint, whichever. So I made the mistake of accidentally putting the paint on a little bit, and then I remembered that I had these. So you're going to want to wrinkle them a little bit, and then you're going to want to glue them on using your Mod Podge. So I was apparently trying to glue them with paint. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, sometimes you're thinking about what you're doing, but your mind is elsewhere. So anyway, using your Mod Podge, you glue on these pieces of paper that have dried. You're going to wrinkle them a little bit before you glue them on, and you're going to make sure you put lots of Mod Podge. And if they're sticking up a little bit, like if there's like little bubbles or anything like that, that's okay. You want to leave that as is, and you'll see why a little bit later on. You're just adding depending on your container, like I think I've added about 4. So it depends on your container how many you're going to add. but you just want to add them, you don't want to add them in any kind of like up and down, you know, like one beside the other or anything like that. Just a few of them to have them um, all around your container. So for my specific container, which is a vitamin container, I'm using 4. And then after you've put the Mod Podge on, you can wait for it to dry, or you can just do what I did and just go and apply the paint. And you're kind of dry brushing it on, and again, you're following the grain of the wood, and you're adding more and less depending on where you're putting it on. So on some sides I added more, then I left a little bit off on the other sides, and then I went back, I dried my brush off, and I went back and I just kind of made little lines so that the black would be coming through. And then you have to let this dry again. This DIY is a little bit more involved, and I actually contemplated whether I should include it in this video or not, but I thought, well, it's a great Dollar Tree trash to treasure DIY, and it's winter themed, and it's great for a tray, so why not? So I'm using this gummies container, and I had used that. So this is the white cardstock that I used, and I measured how tall I was going to have the candle holder and how much paper I needed. And I will be cutting this container in half, basically. I think I left 70 millimeters is how tall it is. Um, so just so you get a kind of an idea, it's not very big, but it's also not tiny. These are the big bottles of, this is the big bottle of, there's that, I can't get rid of it. Big bottle of fish oil gummies from Costco. If you didn't have a container that you could use and wanted to buy one, you can always buy one of the candle holders at the Dollar Tree and just make it Birch yourself. Um, it doesn't really matter what container you use. I had this one on hand. I had saved it specifically for something. I thought I would make a vase out of it, but this is even better. Now, when you're cutting any kind of plastic bottle like this, you want to be very careful. So what I did was I kind of punctured a hole into it, and I used my scissors to cut around it. I thought I was going to use my miter saw, but it was too hard to use it, so scissors worked best. I used the X-Acto knife to just follow a line, a rough line around it. Then I put some tape around the bottle, like after I cut it off with the scissors, just to get a more even cut around. And I will be finishing it off with some burlap so you won't see the rough edges. If you wanted to make it perfect, it would be pretty hard just because the plastic is a little bit soft. That's why I could cut it with the scissors. So the reason I'm putting the little band of tape around the top is so that I can actually wind up cutting it fairly evenly. So that gave me that straight edge to follow with the scissors, so I can get it as close to even as possible. Again, it's an extra step that I took, but you don't have to do that because you'll be covering it up anyway with the burlap, so nobody will see it. And so once you've cut it as perfectly as you are happy with, then you're just going to paint the top of it and the bottom. It pretty much winds up being almost the whole thing, but the top and bottom you're going to paint out white. So in case the little piece of paper shows through or whatever so that you can't see it, you could paint the whole thing white. It doesn't really matter. I did it just more of a precaution. You don't even necessarily have to do that. But again, I'm using that Rust-Oleum white, chalked white linen white paint. That paint goes a long way for me, and as I said before, I constantly run out of white acrylic paint, so for bigger things I also like to use the linen white because it goes really nicely on everything. It's not too expensive to buy, and I always buy the big container at Home Depot, so that way it lasts me quite a bit. And I'm sorry I don't have the footage, but once this is dry, you're going to take your bark that you had colored gray, and you're going to hot glue it around the container. And then you're going to take just like a little pick, and anywhere where you have glued down those little white pieces of paper, you're going to try and scrape them off. Sometimes you just lift them up a little bit, sometimes you'll take them off completely. If you've taken too much off and the white is now showing, or it's a little bit awkward, then you're just going to dry brush some of that black paint back on. And as you can see parts there's lifted, parts are missing, and it's just giving the illusion of bark, which is what you wanted to do. Then you're going to take care of that top part, and you're going to take a piece of burlap and just wrap it around the top and see how much you need. I'm just taking that roll of burlap that I've been using for other projects, and I'm cutting it in half again, and then I'm going to glue the uneven part on the inside of the cup and the even part on the outside. You should use hot glue to glue this down. And then to add more decoration, I have a little bit of the Christmas tree left from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to add the little green part branches so it looks like it has some greenery on it. And that's it for this one. Again, another really easy DIY, but a lot of steps to it. So this one was probably the most involved one out of all of them, but I think it turned out really great. I will be putting a candle from the Dollar Tree into it, and I won't light this candle up, but it's just more for like a decorative purpose, but it turned out really nice and it'll look great in the tiered tray decor, and it's great, perfect for winter. So this next DIY is another easy DIY. It's just a couple popsicle sticks, some decorative glaze, and some glue to make some rustic looking skis. So unfortunately the footage is missing. I don't know where it went. I don't know why my phone doesn't record when I press record. But anyway, what I did was I took two popsicle sticks and I took three popsicle sticks. One of them I cut in half and then I took the tops of it and I hot glued them to the end of each popsicle. And then I took a little bit off of the pieces that were left just to make little feet for the skis. And then I took a small piece of rope and I just hot glued it around the foot part, kind of where your boot would go into the ski. And then I am applying my decorative glaze just to stain the skis a little bit so they have that rustic winter feel. And that's it. So if you can pick up some popsicle sticks at the Dollar Tree, even if you pick up the bigger ones, might even look better to have bigger skis. But you'll need three. Two skis and then one to get the tops of the skis to kind of have that loop. And then like if you cut the tips of each end of that one, and then the just little strips for the boots. Then a tiny piece of rope for the boot strap parts where your kind of boots will go in, so it gives the illusion of a strap. But that's it. Really easy, really inexpensive to make. It basically free if you have popsicle sticks, and I think they look really cute. And again, if you didn't have the dark stain, you could do it with paint, or you could do black paint with white over top, kind of the way we did the sled. Endless options to make it a rustic winter theme thing for your tray. And so here are the finished skis. Again, really cute. So last but not least, I'm making a little snowball crate. Again, using this mini crate from the Dollar Tree. This one is slightly smaller than the one that I used for the books. And I am using this one to make, like I said, a miniature snowball crate, and I'm just using some black and white acrylic paint to paint it out. When you're painting the sides, you want to make sure that you use a ruler or something like that to get a really straight line. I had to go back and fix mine because I did not use a ruler or tape or anything like that, but I'm painting the top lines black and the bottom and the middle line white. So even though the crate is light, I do have to go over the white a few times. So I do 2 coats of the white. Then I wind up fixing what I need to fix. And I use Mod Podge to glue on a little handmade snowballs sign. And this is just something I typed up quickly on Google Docs and adjusted the fonts. And the fonts that I used were Easy November for the handwritten, Animatic for the top part, and then just Times New Roman for the 10 cents. And I cut it out. I made it to the size of to match the crate, so about 3 inches wide and about 2 inches tall. And I put some of these faux snowballs into the little container, and it'll make a great winter tier tray decor piece. Again, all from the Dollar Tree. These faux snowballs are from the Dollar Tree. The crate is from there, and the paint is as well. And the sign I printed off. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. Also, let me know what you think, which one was your favorite. So this first one is actually going to be a round, either sign or wreath. I'm going to be using it as a wreath. So what I'm doing is I'm going to paint out this thin piece of plywood that my husband cut into a circle. So this is kind of like a trash to treasure item. And you can buy these wood rounds. I've seen them on Facebook Marketplace for really cheap, like $5 a wood round or $10, something like that. Or if you have scrap wood that's big enough, you can make it out of that. I believe Home Depot might have it too, so many options. You can also use a pizza pan from the Dollar Tree if that's what you want to go with, because you can't cut your own or you can't find these. So I'm kind of putting this painter's tape in the middle. Well, not in the middle, in the top. A little bit, I'm leaving a bigger part black. I'm going to be painting the bigger part black and the smaller part white. So I kind of estimated where I wanted to put that. And the white I'm going to be painting with the Rust-Oleum chalked linen white. And the black I'm going to be painting with the Rust-Oleum chalked charcoal. And I'll just give them a nice good coat of it. And then when I take that painter's tape off, I'll put a ribbon there so that way you won't see the brown. I suppose I didn't have to put this piece in there because I was putting the ribbon in, but I was worried that I would go too far over and it would be crooked, so this made it kind of be a little bit straighter. But if you're really good at freehanding, you don't have to do that. Once that is all nice and dry, you'll remove your painter's tape and then you can apply your design, whatever you want it to be. So for me, I thought I was going to do a bow and use this white burlap, but I decided not to after. I am using this jute rope, and the design that I made, it just says welcome. I used the Easy November font, and I believe I made it about 4.5 inches tall and 11 inches wide. So I tried to kind of make it as big as my mat would take it for the width. And then all I did was, like I said, apply the ribbon and apply the design. So I do apologize for the angle. I didn't realize that it was so low, but I do wind up fixing it. Now I just put the ribbon on with some hot glue. I glued it to the back, and I just put like a good amount of hot glue. Hopefully it'll stay, and if it doesn't, it's an easy fix. I didn't want to do staples or anything like that because we just got a new door and I'm afraid of it getting scratched, so I didn't want any kind of metal on the back of here. And I do wind up, I don't have this on camera, but I do wind up putting just I have a Dollar Tree dishcloth, so I do wind up putting that in the back, just cutting a circle and putting that in the back just to protect the door, but you don't have to do that. I just kind of get paranoid. So I'll attach the little hanger here, and it's just jute rope. I just hot glue it on, and then I do my design. Don't put your hanger on first, because then I wind up removing it. Don't put it on first, because then you can't push the design on if you're doing a design. So I do wind up removing it and doing it over. The vinyl that I used was the Dollar Tree vinyl, and I'm happy with it for some things, but for lettering, I'm not super happy with it. So it is a little bit tricky. Sometimes it doesn't cut properly, so maybe it's just me, but I did wind up having to redo the M and E because it just didn't cut it properly. So you'll see me fidgeting around with that. So after I apply my design, I reattach the little jute rope for the hook, and then I also attach these green picks that I picked up at the Dollar Tree over Christmas time, and they're just very neutral, a little bit glittery, but to me they look kind of frosted, so perfect for winter, and I attach them, hot glue them to the bottom, just to give a little bit of green to this sign. And that's all there is to it. I think it's really cute. It looks awesome on my front porch. If you guys haven't had a chance, I did a front porch tour on over on my home channel. I posted that yesterday, so if you haven't had a chance, pop on over there and check it out. I'll post it in the description below. But I think this turned out really cute. Let me know what you think. So this next DIY is also super easy and inexpensive to do. I'm just using one of these Monstera leaves that I found at the Dollar Tree last year, so I have it left over. And I'm going to be applying a little bit of this gold metallic paint on it. I'm covering it, but I'm not doing like a full-on, 3 coats coverage. I just want a little bit of the green popping through. So this is what I get when I do that. And then I'm using the Rust-Oleum chocolate and white to paint just a piece of cardboard, and I'm not applying it fully where I'm doing like a full coat of the paint. I want it to kind of look like aged wood or birch bark or something like that. So you'll see me doing that right now. So once I achieve the coverage that I want and the look that I'm going for, I set it out to dry a little bit and then I help it with my hair dryer. I actually don't know about you guys, but I get very impatient with this stuff, and if sometimes I'm pretty organized and I kind of, okay, I need to paint this, so I'll paint it and then I'll work on a different DIY. But other times I'm not as organized, so then I get all frustrated and I wind up using my blow dryer. Once I do that, I apply these painter sticks and garden picks, which I have to remember this year when the spring stuff comes out to get more of. And I just apply it to the back to keep the cardboard straight. And again, I'm just using a hot glue gun for all of these, nothing too spectacular. It works pretty well. I bought some Gorilla hot glue and it seems to be holding up pretty well. And then I attached to the leaf with just a little bit of hot glue at the front, and that's all there is to this. It makes a great little winter picture. I thought I would add some more stuff, but then I decided this was perfect as it is. Let me know what you think. This next one is also pretty easy. I'm just using some flat white paint and a paper plate, and I'm going to spray paint that in white. If you already have a white plate, you don't need to use it, or if the color of your cloche is different, then you don't have to paint it at all, but mine was white, so I wanted it white. And then I've got all these leftover bits and pieces. So I've got some pine cones, then I've got this pine cone that I painted. It was actually just from the garden. Then I have these little pine cone little pine cone pieces from the Dollar Tree. I've got a little snowflake, some acorns, just little bits of flowers and some cotton. And I'm just going to be arranging all of this on a plate so that I can see what it looks like, and then I'll be hot gluing it down. The only advice I have for this, and I kind of, as I was doing it, I thought, oh, I should go upstairs and kind of see if this will fit if I have it on the edges here and whatnot, but I didn't. So you'll see what I'm talking about after. So I had to kind of cut around and remove one of the pine cones. And so once I get kind of the arrangement that I'm liking, I hot glue it down. It's always good to kind of arrange it first before you hot glue, just so you don't damage your stuff and you can use it after. And I'm just kind of trying to add, bits of green there, bits of white, a little bit pop of color, just to make it look like a nice winter arrangement. So once I've glued everything down, then this is what I get, and this is what I meant that you have to just make sure that you are able to fit it in whatever you're putting it in. So my idea was that I have this cloche that I want to put an arrangement in that I can just put in and take out. You could just arrange all of this without hot gluing it for sure, but this way I can keep it for years to come, and then next year if I'm thinking, what did I put in there for winter? If I'm not feeling inspired, I have this to kind of go back to. And it's nice to not always have to create, you guys, although I love doing it. But sometimes you just want to have something that's there until you create your new DIY. So those are all of the angles, and then I do put a glass lid, and that's what was kind of preventing it from kind of being able to close because I had some things kind of sticking out. But there it is. It's a cute little winter arrangement. Let me know what you think. So this last bit I just wanted to add in there for you, but what it is a few sticks. So I had a few little sticks left over from the garden from a previous project. I'm making like a bundle of sticks. I'm just going to hot glue them together, and then I will tie a little bit of jute rope and then apply just kind of like a light coat of white paint. And it's a nice little pile of wood that you can add into any winter themed decor tray, and you can also use it for Valentine's Day if you're doing a tray and you want like a rustic Valentine's Day feel. You can totally add that in there too. I just wanted to show you how easy you can make little tray decors and winter decors without having to spend any money. I think it's one of those seasons, summer too, but one of those seasons where you can really decorate using nature, and you may have this stuff in your backyard. If you wanted to do bigger as well, you could, and you don't have to spend money or even like be super duper involved in what you're making. And once you've applied that white paint to kind of give it an illusion of like snow, here's what it turns out like. It's really cute. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I am using this Let It Snow sign, and I am painting it out in the chalked linen white paint from Rust-Oleum. And again, I only need one coat of it because it's chalk paint and it does a really good job of covering. and I just painted out and I let it dry. This one I didn't worry too much about covering the in between because I liked a little bit of the brown showing through. It took me a long time to decide what exactly I wanted to do with this sign. I didn't want to make it this, I originally was going to make it the same thing as the other one, but then I thought, why not make it a little bit different? So I have these little wood slices. I believe I got them at the Dollar Tree, and I am just making a hole through them with my drill so that I can put some wooden dowels into them. Now, they may not be from the Dollar Tree. I have some that were from a tree that my neighbors chopped down and some that were from the Dollar Tree. I think these ones are the thicker ones, so they are from the tree. Um, so I'm just making holes in them, and then I'm taking these wooden dowels and I'm just pushing them in. Originally, I thought I was going to use the whole dowel, but then I decided to just cut it in half, and I just do this using my wire cutters. I just measure 6 inches so that way they're the same length. But I'll have to snip them down a little bit more because one hole was deeper than the other. So then I just sand down the edge of the one that I had to snip the top of, and the other one I didn't have to do that because I just used the uneven end to put it into the piece of wood. And I will be hot gluing and wood gluing these, so that way I can make sure that it's a nice strong hold. And the reason for the hot glue is so that it makes it stick immediately, and then that wood glue gives it that permanent hold. I just didn't have time to wait for that wood glue to cure because, like I said, it took me a long time to decide what I was going to do with this sign, how I was going to do it, and I like to change my mind at the last minute all the time, so that is the reason for the hot glue, and thank goodness for hot glue. So I love my dark wax, so I'm going to be using that dark wax just to stain the wood slices a little bit. I'm not always a fan of, sometimes I am, but I'm not usually a fan of the really light wood. So I'm staining the slices and the wooden dowels. And again, I'm just using a cloth to do this, nothing too fancy. So once I've got them stained with the wax, I'm trying to position to see how I'm going to put the Let It Snow. But before I do that, I decide I want to add a little bit of snow to the bottom of these wood slices. So I have this fur that I also got at the dollar store, and I'm just going to hot glue little bits of it so it looks like fluffy snow. So normally I would cut this part out, but I wanted to show you in case you do make the sign, you're like, what is this? So the paint kind of dripped to the back of here, and then it just comes off with your finger, or like scissors or a little knife. These little things that are sticking, like little pieces of paint that are sticking out of the, like from the letters. And I also wanted this little snowflake to stand out. So I'm using a mixture of the silver, metallic silver and blue. And then I add a little bit more blue and just go over top of it so that it gives it that like little bluish silver snowflake look. And I'm doing like a light coat so the white still shows a little bit through the snowflake. I feel like I'm talking through this video a lot, but I just wanted to show you my steps here. So then I go ahead and I hot glue little bits of the snow on to the wood slices. I'm not covering the entire slice, just a little bit here and a little bit there. And I do this on both slices. And then I decide that I also want some trees there. But before I do that, I want to glue on my sign. Now this is where I fumbled a little bit. Just because the wood slice is higher on one end, so it wasn't sticking properly. And then I wound up moving it to the edge of my table and having the wood slices hang down. And then I glued it that way. And again, I used a combination of wood glue and hot glue, and then I let that sit for a few minutes, maybe like 5 minutes, so that the hot glue would set. Then I put in on a little bit more hot glue just to make sure that it was holding it right now because I couldn't clamp it down or anything like that. So that's what you see me doing here. So once that's set for a little bit, I just go ahead and I put these Christmas trees. They're the miniature Christmas trees from the Dollar Tree, and I just glued them to the one side, to the one slice, and then I put berries on the other slice. And that brings this project to a close. Again, another easy project to do, very inexpensive. You only need the sign, some wood slices, and little embellishments, and it turned out really great. I'm very, very happy with it. So for me, these projects cost me under $3, but really it's more like $2 because I had the Christmas trees and the berries on hand and I didn't use a full package of them. I'm using this material, this wreath form here. I believe I got this from a Facebook Marketplace. I got a whole set of them for about 50 cents each. And I'm just spray painting it in just this brown spray paint that I had on hand. And it's just because I didn't like the really light color. Just using a little bit of lamb's ear that I got from Amazon. I have not been able to find this at stores other than Michael's, where it's quite expensive. So I'm very careful with how I use this lamb's ear that I got from Amazon, as I said. I'm just using the two right here, and I'll be hot gluing them down. But before I go ahead and do that, I want to add a welcome sign to the wreath itself. So what I have here is just a scrap piece of wood that's actually left over from my advent calendar. It was just a cutout that I had left over. I wound up staining it with the Rust-Oleum decorative glaze over top of the Annie Sloan black wax. You don't have to do this. You could just use the decorative glaze. It just happened to have that Annie Sloan black wax on it, so I wanted a little bit of a more brown tone, so I added that decorative glaze. And what I'm doing is I'm using my Cricut to cut out the welcome, and I wound up cutting a hole, drilling a hole to the piece of wood so that I can attach it with floral wire. Use my Cricut to cut out welcome using the Easy November font, which I got from Defont. And I'm just going to be dabbing on white acrylic paint from the Dollar Tree onto the stencil. Actually, sorry, painting it on, not dabbing it on. And the key with when you're doing any kind of stencil is you don't want to put too much paint on it. You want to put kind of less is more. So you're better off doing several coats than trying to cake on a lot at once. I did 2 coats of that, and once it dried, I just removed it, and I realized that I didn't have enough of my stencil for the E, so I freehand drew the E. Be careful when you cut out. If you're using little pieces like I do, just make sure that they fit. And I thought they would, and I didn't look well enough on the mat the way it looked on the printout and on the screen and on my mat, but that's okay. I made it work, and I just weed it, and then I'm going to attach it to the wreath. And as I said, I'm just using the floral wire. It's a green floral wire. If you have silver, it would work too. It's going to be covered by the lamb's ear. So I'm not too concerned, and the bow, so I'm not too concerned about it showing because I know it won't show. And I cut it to size, and then I just go ahead, like I said, and I hot glue the lamb's ear, and I also add some cotton stems that I got from the Dollar Tree. And then I'll show you what I do with the bow. So originally I thought maybe I could wrap the lamb's ear around, but I wound up just hot gluing it, and then as I said, I'm very careful with it, so I didn't want to use too much if I didn't have to. I was happy to add little leaves to it if I needed to. Then I also added the eucalyptus from the Dollar Tree just in here, just to add a little bit more dimension to this. And I cut off little branches of the lamb's ear to save on the stems. And then I'll be adding my bow. For the bow, I really like the buffalo check, the black and white, but I did not have the ribbon for that. So what I actually wound up doing is at Christmas time I had purchased the fabric, the buffalo check fabric. Now if you didn't purchase it at Christmas time, you can always buy the ribbon at Michael's or the fabric at a fabric store. You might even still be able to, I know in the States the Dollar Tree has a little bit more variety than ours do. So you might be even able to pick it up at a Dollar Tree or something like that. But like I said, I didn't have it on hand, didn't want to go out and buy it, so I used what I had. So after I got all of the florals and the cotton in here, then I go ahead to work on my ribbon. So I took a piece of the fabric and I just cut strips off for my ribbon to make, for my bow to make little loops. And once I cut those off, I tied the loops because it's not like ribbon, this is fabric, so it didn't stay up or anything like that, but it gave me the color that I wanted. And I was very careful to follow the pattern of the like the checkered pattern when I was cutting to get as straight as possible. And then I just hot glued it to the wreath just to give me that checkered pattern at the bottom. And then over top, I went ahead and I used some burlap ribbon and I cut it in half because it was quite wide. I cut it in half so that I would get a thinner ribbon form. Originally, I was going to use something else that I had purchased, but it just wasn't working, so I wound up using the bigger ribbon. And I used the same technique where I just tied, well, I made it like a bow, and then I hot glued it so it looked more like a nice bow rather than like a shoelace tied bow. And that's all there was to this. Again, another adorable wreath. For the second mini version of this wreath, I'm using another mason jar ring, and I've spray painted part of it kind of just a little bit over top of it and off on a few of the sides in the same brown as I did the bigger wreath, and this was just so that it wouldn't be so shiny. And again, to save my lamb's ear, I'm just using a few leaves of it for this wreath, and I will be hot gluing them to the wreath and to make it look exactly like the bigger version. I also add some of the other green to it, and I realized that I had extra lamb's ear over there, so I wind up just putting that away. And then I add, which I didn't add to the bigger one, I added the cotton to the bigger one, but the cotton was too big and there was no way for me to make it smaller, so I have these mini little pine cones from the Dollar Tree. They're frosted, so they look like there's snow on them, so I add those. And then I just have a piece of a painter's stick, like a stir stick for painting, and I stain that in the Rust-Oleum decorative glaze, and in white paint marker I write the word welcome and I hot glue it to the mini wreath. Then I add a little bit of burlap ribbon, and again, that's all there is to this wreath. So the ribbon that I'm using is actually like a burlap border that you can peel and stick on. So I'm having to use a little bit, like I stick it together, but then I also wind up having to use a little bit of hot glue just because I'm trying to twist it in a way that it doesn't really want to be twisted. But a little bit of hot glue can solve anything. So here it is all finished. Again, it'll be a great addition to my tray decor. And here it is with the bigger piece, bigger wreath. Again, both are so nice and perfect for winter. So if you enjoyed this video, give me a big thumbs up. Here are all the wreaths together, and let me know which one was your favorite. Well, you made it to the very end. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for some new inspirations in the coming weeks. Hit that like button if you haven't yet. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Hit the notification bell so you can get new videos. And leave me a comment so I can see what you guys think and let me know. Thanks and have a great day. Bye-bye.